Hi, and welcome to the screencast for this week for Read 514 Linguistics and Literacies for the 21st Century. I'm Dr. Jeffries, and today we're going to be talking about developing a culture of literacy, specifically talking about differences between school and community discourse. And in our specific example, we'll be talking about Jenny and Donnie in other people's words. So, the reading that you had for this week, we talked about um, Jenny and Donnie, the characters of other people's words, and we kind of, the author gives a little bit of a context in which they live. And so first I want to talk to you a little bit about what is called a socio-cultural view of language and learning. I chose this book, and I want us to read this book together because I'm a firm believer that I don't ever want to talk about linguistics and of language as a discipline that is isolated from the people who speak it. So language can never be really thought of in isolation from the people who speak it, from their culture, their values, their social and their economic situation, the place where they live or the jobs that they have, and especially in terms of the accent that they speak with and the value that people place on the accent they speak with. So in short, language has to be seen alongside the social world of the people who inhabit it. And that's why we're going to bring in many social worlds into this class, the worlds of all the students in the class, into this classroom, and we'll discuss language development and attitudes alongside these social words. But we are all examples of people who have succeeded in the school system. So look at us, we've all managed to get into graduate school. So we must also look at examples of people who struggle in school. And that's why we will all focus on the social world of Jenny and Donnie, the main characters in this book. So through them, we will see how society looks from below, from the lower social classes, from a different culture, from a different dialect. And this will allow us to learn many things about language, the relationship between language in school and language in the community. So this will have a lot of implications later on for us teachers and policymakers in education. So in this class we'll learn how a first language is learned. We'll learn about English, about its systems, its sounds, letters, and its implications for the teaching of reading. And we'll learn about dialects and the relationship between standard and non-standard dialects. We will also learn that language is a part of discourse, and it really can't be separated from discourse. It can't be treated in isolation. So the first theoretical point that I wanted to make is the one that James G. makes, and the difference between discourse with a little d and discourse with a big D. So James G. talks about discourse with a little d as language in use, the use of language. But he puts a heavy emphasis on that discourse is, with a big D, is the combination of language with other social practices. So language is mixed within those social practices, with behaviors, with values, with ways of thinking, with the clothes that you wear, with the food, the customs, and the perspectives that you have. So language is always used from a perspective and always occurs in a context. And so we will use this concept of discourse, and we'll be able to test out these concepts alongside the examples of Jenny and of Donnie. Jenny's learning to read as an adult, and Donnie's learning to read and write as a young boy. And we'll learn that we can't separate the social world of a student from the world of teaching. And so I want to point out a few things that are important in the book to pay attention to. So Jenny and Donnie, as we can see in the first chapters, have the challenges that many families have, that struggle in the schooling system. They moved from a rural to an urban setting, and this is quite often a culture clash. They don't have the same resources that they had before, and they are trying to navigate a new world, coming from a rural part to an urban setting. They are not literate, not well versed in the standard English that is spoken in the school and in the rest of society. They're longing for their home and their culture, so they always look back towards their culture and miss it. They live in neighborhoods which don't have the best resources, sometimes called ghettos, where they don't have the best access to schools, or sometimes live in violent areas. And they face prejudice and stereotypes, and the quality of the schools that are available for them to them are not always the best. The author mentions some common stereotypes for Appalachians, that they're ignorant, that they're lazy, that they're unclean. And so we have to start thinking, how does this affect the everyday life, both of adults or children in this community, in terms of affecting their motivation or affecting the way that they see themselves. And there's also not only stereotyping, but there's direct discrimination against them because of their cultural values. So their mannerisms, their customs, their speech patterns, which, going back to discourse with a big D, all of these are part of their discourse, they are discriminated against because of them. And so we see it when Jenny has a very important quote. She says, I couldn't learn how to read because I talk different, because, I'm countrified and my words don't come out the way I'm supposed to. That's the way I was brought up. So immediately it shows us how Jenny did not feel intelligent. She didn't feel like she spoke the right language, meaning the language that was expected of her in school. But she is right. This is what you learn, and because that's the way that she was brought up. So we might want to say that the discourse that Jenny brings to the school, her mannerisms, her customs, her speech patterns, are not valued at the school that she goes to. And so these cultural values are different from the ones on the mainstream. So it doesn't just have to do with just the way that she speaks, but Jenny's cultural values are in conflict. She relies more, and Appalachians rely more on family networks and not on social agencies. And so she doesn't go out to seek the help of social agencies because she's used to relying on family networks. She is reluctant to accept help, to accept charity, which a family like her, who's moving from a rural area to an urban area, might seek out some sort of help to navigate these complex institutions, but that goes against her cultural values. And there's a lot of self-sufficiency in terms of the cultural values of Appalachians, which also comes in conflict with her getting enough help from other people in order to navigate all this. And a good example of the cultural values is the straight talking. So say something as simple and straightforward as possible. And this also tends to conflict with school culture, which sometimes might seem not as straightforward, sometimes seems more polite, more about being nice than saying what you mean. And where saying what you mean might not seem to be taken as being nice. And so all of these conflicts put her and her family at odds with the school. It's interesting also to pay attention to what kind of exposure do Jenny and Donnie get to printed materials in the house. And I was also interested in this quote on page 34. It says, "For Appalachian children, there's a deep conflict between the values in school and the values at home. The children aren't prepared to handle this encounter with a large bureaucratic institution. Appalachians expect relationships to be personal. They aren't comfortable with functional relationships." And so here we see the struggle that Jenny has with dealing with the teacher and with the school as a whole, where, for example, she can't really believe and doesn't understand why the teacher hands homework to Donnie, which Donnie can't do, and why she criticizes Donnie for not doing it. And so I beg you to think about what is the miscommunication here. Why is Jenny frustrated that he was past the second grade, and but he can't learn how, doesn't know how to read and write? What is going on here? What is the teacher expecting to happen at home? And what is Jenny expecting the school to do? And so we call this a miscommunication, which is at the root of the conflict between these two. And finally, the attitudes of the school, which seem very shocking, deepening this conflict between the school and the community. The teacher is quoted as saying, about Jenny, "I knew she was ignorant as soon as she opened her mouth." So we can draw from this that, of course, Jenny's accent fits in a stereotypical view for the teacher of ignorant people. And so this already deepens the rift between Jenny and the school. The teacher thinks that Appalachian culture does not value education, and then parents don't know how to parent and don't instill a desire for success. So we're going to get to know Jenny and Donnie more. Is this really true? Do the parents not know how to parent? Do they not instill desire for success? Does Appalachian culture do not value education? Well, what else is going on here? So, Appalachians are alienated from the school system. They don't understand the school as an institution. School personnel don't understand them. They don't believe they can or they don't want to learn. And this, of course, is a recipe for failure. And so, as we go along, we're going to explore these issues. What is the nature of the miscommunication here? Does this miscommunication ring true with some of the experiences that you've had as a student or as a teacher? How is this situation similar or different from the experience of other non-mainstream groups, such as African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, or other immigrant communities? And so as we go along, we're going to be reflecting on this through weekly participation activities and continuing the discussion on this.